surround myself with Hells Angels and MS-13 people to have my back. But most dangerous people are women, if you let them be.
Brian likes to cross boundaries.
There was a moment of fear. Do I just let this happen? Do I not fight back?
I just remember everything just escalated so fast. And I felt so fucking violated.
Even if I felt like I could say no, it was still like, I'm gonna be punished for this.
If you tap the cobra, you're gonna get the fucking fangs.
Brian just always made it really clear that if you did anything against his wishes, he was just gonna bring the full force of everything he had against you. And so, yeah, I mean, I take the threats pretty serious.
In the 2000s, Marlyn Manson, he was obviously one of the biggest stars in the world. He's a very savvy individual who understands the, the general zeitgeist of the public. And so, post-Columbine, he doubled down on who he was and what he was. He always touches that nerve that puts you in an uncomfortable place. That scary monster in the corner. He embodied it and projects it back at you. And people loved him for that.
My first encounter with him was completely by chance. I was just about to turn 18 years old. He had an art gallery opening. I went just solely to look at his artwork. When I arrived at the venue, I was informed that he was there and he was signing autographs. And I was like, oh my God, this is my opportunity. I wanted to meet him for so long.
People probably imagine if I painted something, it would be like in dog feces or blood or something. But there is blood in some of them.
There he was, right in front of me. And I was just overwhelmed with emotion. Flush of tears came over me. He was really understanding. He tried to calm me down. I said, I love your music. I'd love to work with you on anything that you might think that we could work together on. I thought I just embarrassed myself that I'd probably never be able to see him again, and I was okay with that. And then one day, he called me. I couldn't believe it. We'd have like 3-hour conversations. One thing I noticed is that he would talk a lot.
I've tried to let people talk more in conversations because I know I tend to talk a lot, but it's an uncomfortability of silence.
Then, out of the blue, he said, I have a job for you. And I said, okay, well, what is it? And he's like, I want you to come work for me. And I'm like, of course. I just couldn't believe that he would want to spend that kind of time with me. And the job that he offered me was to be his personal assistant. A typical day would be me waking him up in the mid-afternoon, serving him breakfast, trying to make the house conducive to creativity.
For me now, I don't separate art from music, from performance. I no longer think that the performance has to exist on a stage. You know, I don't want to live within those boundaries anymore.
So Manson at that time, he wanted to go into filmmaking.
You know, it's funny, sometimes the hardest part to talk about is the beginning and when we first met and the time when you were so blissfully ignorant. I was 18 years old, just fresh out of my mom's house. I had just done a photo shoot for a film I had done called Running with Scissors. I was with Joseph Cross, and he was like, yeah, I'm going to this party at the Chateau tonight. Do you want to come? But I was like, sure, I ain't got nothing else to do. I'm already like dressed up. I may as well go. We were all, you know, teenagers. And we were just kind of being wallflowers in the corner. And then this big, dark, pale man walked up to me. He started talking to me about the film I'd done, 13, and that he was a fan, and that he was doing this film called Phantasmagoria.
You want to make something that's very, very unsettling, but also very, I think it's kind of romantic in a way.
He said, there's this role in my film that I think you would be great for, and like, I would love to photograph you. Like, I'm not just a musician, I take photographs, I paint, I do all these things. And I was just kind of like, wow, that's so cool. Like, stuff like this never happens to me.
I'm like a little kid, like if it's food or a girl, I'm like, I want that. I mean, that's sort of my childish mentality.
At that point, I did not think that anything romantic could ever happen with us. I saw him as a well-established, much older man who was married to like Dita Von Teese, a beautiful, established burlesque model.
The thing that we have common ground with is that we both are very interested in theatrics and like living up to our characters that we created.
Later on, as we grew more close, he was alluding to maybe some things weren't that great in his marriage. He was presenting himself sort of as this lonely guy who maybe had lost sight of who he was a bit, had been in a slump, a bit uninspired. But after meeting me, he feels like inspired again, and he wants to write, and he wants to make art. So that felt good. He waited for months to even make a move. You know, the first time he sort of let me into the bedroom, you know, after we had sort of been dating for months, and he had told me that she had moved out of the house, and I went into the bedroom, and her things were just everywhere. And like her stuff still all over the sink. And so, yeah, in the beginning, there were red flags that I definitely ignored, but I really thought that we were in love.
I didn't see a lot of their relationship develop in the beginning because he was on tour with her, and I didn't work on that tour. But being a fan and being about the same age, I was like, oh, that's so exciting. So good for her. She and I weren't friendly in that sense where we had an actual friendship. I interacted with her when she was around. but I did notice that she wanted to have him to herself a lot of the time.
Early on, I really thought this was something really special, and he really loved me, and I was really safe, and I was really lucky. I think the more and more we talked, the onion started to be sort of peeled as to what he believed Marlyn Manson was. He did kind of take on this saintly-like quality in my mind, you know, that he's trying to deliver a message that's actually going to, like, move things forward and wake people up. I thought, wow, this is just so much bigger than me, and this artist is so important, and like their art is so important for the world, and I'll just do anything it takes to facilitate that and to make sure that they can be the best version of themselves, no matter what that meant for me in my life. I thought I was the youngest person that he had sort of dated at that point. So to me, it was a very light-hearted joke to make in the beginning that, oh, it's like Lolita. So I wore heart-shaped glasses to see him once, you know, sort of as a joke. And then he said, you know, I'm gonna write a song about it. Because of our relationship and the way that was inspiring him, we were watching, you know, like True Romance and Bonnie and Clyde and The Hunger and all of these things that were about this love story that was just shrouded in violence. And that started to sort of devolve into treatment for the music video for Heart-Shaped Glasses.
The video commissioner is a very unique position at the label where you are in charge of the brand, which is the artist, and you're also in charge of the budgets and all the overseeing of the production and making of the video. There were a lot of people who didn't, you know, want to deal with Manson because he can be complicated. But I kind of came at it with a very pragmatic way to work with him. So Manson is like most big artists, they have ideas of what they want to do. So for me, it was just about like corralling it in a way that made it safe. Before Heart-Shaped Glasses, I was able to make videos with him and no one heard about it. When you do a video shoot and the top people at the label don't hear anything, that's a good thing, you know? So for Heart-Shaped Glasses, basically, Manson was just like, I want to do Lolita. In 2007, it just didn't seem that radical. It seemed almost past out, like, Lolita? Really? Okay, you know, that sounds great, you know?
The way it was pitched to me was that there was going to be a sex scene, but that it was going to be shot where the camera is sort of rolling and moving. And so whatever you see would sort of be a blur. It would sort of be kind of a quick flash or a quick blur, or it's gonna be so dark.
I had no connection to Evan whatsoever. I didn't talk to her about creative, I didn't talk to her about her anything. I think it was Manson, 100% Manson, and he drove the agenda for everything that happened. Certainly with her, he was very protective. And on the day of the shoot was people just sitting around on set waiting.
You know, there's already this feeling of this tension. You know, him and his manager were getting into a fight because he wouldn't come on set, and, you know, we'll be lucky if we get anything done today. And so the second we can get on that set, let's just get it done. Brian always had a glass of absinthe in his hand, a red absinthe, and we always drank it together, and this was another day, there was no exception, and I was just, like, drinking a lot.
eventually they came out. Again, didn't talk to anybody. Manson talked to the DP about what he was looking for. I went to what's known as Video Village, where you could watch from the monitor. And then we just kind of got him in there.
I just remember everything just escalated so fast. And I felt like I was in a dream state. First of all, he just literally started devouring my face. It was just so aggressive. And he just started pulling my clothes off.
I think we all felt like, what is actually happening? Are they actually having sex, you know? But I certainly wasn't going to ask. I'm assuming it's consensual, right? I'm assuming that these two people are dating and they're doing something that they want to be controversial about, you know? They were undercovers, but it certainly looked to everyone on set like they were having sex.
I remember putting my hands down to cover myself and him grabbing my hands and sort of peeling them away from my body and saying like, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. Nobody can see, it's dark, it's gonna be really dark. Like nobody's gonna be able to see you. I just, like, I did not know what to do. And from there, it just didn't stop. They yelled, "Cut." The next thing I knew, you know, the entire crew had just like walked off set. And I was just kind of like sitting on the bed naked, just crying. I felt so fucking violated. But I didn't call it rape for like many, many years.
It's demonstrably false that Brian raped Evan Rachel Wood while filming a music video. This was filmed in a studio. There were more than 10 people within 3 feet of the bed. Brian had clothes on, although I suppose that wouldn't prevent this, but none of those people have come forward and said that they witnessed this act. It's completely fabricated, and there's not a witness who will support it.
I do believe her. I didn't know it was against her will. I didn't know that she felt raped. You know, none of that came up. It's so complicated. And like I said, I'm not expunging myself from anything, but I'm also not, I can't say that there was any malice. None of us showed up like, we're gonna get her. At the time, I thought these were two consenting adults doing what they were doing as a couple, you know?
That was a big moment, certainly, when things started to change. That's when I started to see more the depravity.
I was having some strange dreams about Canton, Ohio, where I grew up. Such a loner as a kid.
When I think back, there's almost no time I can think of when he wasn't a part of my life. We were probably in strollers together. We went to Christian school. They'd make us go to a Bible class every day, pray before class and all that. We never really fit in with our class because they all seemed like they were going along with things, were enjoying things, and we're off, drawing Blue Oyster Cult symbols in the desk. But we didn't really hang out. We didn't go to their parties, things like that.
I'm not complaining about my childhood. Everyone has a fucked up childhood.
He only spoke very briefly about his childhood. I don't know what his relationship with him and his mom was like. He alluded it to being strange. He mentioned that his mom, when his dad was away, sort of, would call him by his dad's name, and that he was sort of the stand-in for his father. It seems sad.
When I was growing up, I think that I didn't want to be like my father. My father was, violent, erratic, driven, which I realize now, okay, that's me.
I liked his parents. His mom was very similar to mine. But his dad, I found a little frightening. He had one of the jackets with bullet holes still in it from Vietnam. And he would talk about how he had to spray Agent Orange.
I think that my father apparently was very good at killing people. He was supposed to be a Jesuit priest or something like that. And then he went to Vietnam and became essentially the character that Martin Sheen played in Apocalypse Now. He was saying how when people come back from the war, it's not post-traumatic stress syndrome that they're traumatized by. They were more not able to live without the rush of what's happening.
I know that whenever we would visit his parents, which was very rare, he would always kind of hang out with his dad, and his dad was usually about just as inappropriate as he was. I remember kind of like being in the house with all of them, and Brian kind of disappeared, and his dad said, "Oh, you know where Brian is? He's in the bathroom doing his sniff, and like they just knew he was like in the bathroom doing cocaine, and it like wasn't a big deal at all."
His dad, could just say something that would sort of shock you a little bit, so he could push you past your comfort zone. I think his dad said, have you ever sucked a dick sweeter than mine? Which is, you can get caught in that, because if you say yes or no, but things like that he would do. Like his dad. Brian likes to cross boundaries.
This is the way I am. And then it becomes a question of nature and nurture. Are people raised to be a villain or vilified or a pariah like I have become? If people are worried about what my music does, why are they worried about what I would do?
Paris, motherfucking France. Officially my favorite goddamn city for the rest of my life.
As we got into that mid-2000s, I do think that the audience he was playing to started to shrink. As an artist, maybe he used to be platinum, now he was gold. But I never saw Manson grappling with relevancy. His provocateur persona was something that I think he always felt was relevant. Whether or not it was, that's a different thing.
He always loved to have partners that were ambitious and were successful and were creative. But then that also means that they have a drive and a life of their own. He's someone that needed constant companionship, and I think that was always a bone of contention in the relationship with Evan.
I don't know if it's a scientific fact, but if you let a girl who's upset cry or complain, whatever it is, and just leave them alone for 15 minutes, they'll get over it. They will reset.
There's all these like terrible things that he's done physically, you know, to me or my body. But I swear to God, that it's what he does to your mind and your psyche that is the most damaging. It's relentless. It's a constant stream of information, ideas, and his facts and his views on the world and his views about you and your life and what you should be doing, like how he's the answer to all your problems. And he just knew how to run you around in circles until you were so exhausted that you just gave in.
I was just recently reading the CIA interrogation manual, but I found that all of the question techniques that they had in it weren't the way that I talk to people already. So it made me feel like maybe I missed my calling.
He was functioning, but not in the way that he had in the past. He was kind of going through the motions. I felt very bad for him. It's a very taxing lifestyle. There's a lot of expected from you. Drugs and alcohol are one way to cope with those things. And he definitely used them.
You could tell that there was a lifestyle. He started to like be more bloated and more, you know, like just look a little unhealthy. You could see it taking its toll. By the time you get into your 40s, like eventually something has to give.
At that time, there was problems in the relationship with Evan. And I was kind of in and out because I was already overwhelmed myself with the job and our friendship. So I decided that I was going to leave our friendship and it was going to be over because I couldn't stand to watch a friend of mine destroy himself like that.
If Eat Me, Drink Me was the love album, then The High End of Low was definitely the abuse album. A lot of it was written and made when I was trapped in the house and living out some of the worst days of my entire life. There was a very specific day that took place in Glencoe in the house. I was kept up for 3 days, maybe almost 4. And if you said, you know, I can't stay awake anymore, I can't keep my eyes open, I have to go to sleep, he would say, well, do the drugs, you know, then you don't have any excuse, you're gonna wake up. He had locked himself in the bedroom and he was blasting the Radiohead song Exit Music for a film. He always said that if he was ever gonna kill himself, that he would put on that song. So I was convinced that he was killing himself, and I started like pounding on the door, and I was screaming. I was crying, and finally he opened the door, and I sort of kind of collapsed inside, and then he said, you know, we're going up to the art room, we're gonna do it. The thing that always scared me the most about him and our time together was this really romanticized idea about suicide. After you're up for 3 days and like borderline hallucinating at this point, and I'd been in the house for so long and was just completely broken down, I think your logic at that time is, oh, well, I know I can't say no to this person. He's just not somebody that you say no to. Maybe he won't go through with it, maybe he will, but either way, I have to show him that I'm loyal, otherwise I put myself more at risk. So I grabbed a pair of ruby slippers and my father's poetry book. And these were the 2 items that I was taking with me if I died. So when we went up to the art room, I was sort of prepared for anything, and then he kind of said, okay, we're not really gonna kill ourselves, but we're gonna make everybody think that we are. He wanted me to cut my wrists, so I did, and then he poured all this like fake blood on me to make it even worse, like on the open wounds and stuff. And then he made me like lay there, and he was taking photographs of me and sending it to people and told them that, oh, Evan slit her wrist to get my attention, or like it was a way for him to show, look how crazy Evan is and look what I'm having to deal with, that it was kind of feeding into this narrative that he sort of relied on with all the girls, which was, oh my God, she's a drug addict, she's crazy, she's the one that's, you know, making me not able to work, and look at this, look at what I have to deal with. Yeah, it was one of the worst days of my life, for sure. With Brian, you're put on a pedestal for a brief moment, and then you fall from that pedestal, and then you spend the rest of your relationship trying to get back on it and trying to be that savior again. But there's usually somebody that's being groomed to be like the savior and being made to feel really special.
Around 2010, Brian Warner contacted me via MySpace, and he wrote to me saying he liked my photography and would love to work with me sometime. I was a fan of his aesthetic and the images he had created. Our conversations at the time, they started on what artists we loved, what movies inspired us. It was a lot of just texting, and it made me nervous, it made me excited that someone that I respected in that way would want to talk to me about these kind of things.
I mean, photographer occasionally, but I've never been paid for that. So, and the only reason I started it was because I would like to take pictures of people to paint from. And also it's a great way to get girls naked.
Brian invited me to come over and talk about doing a project together. I went over to his house. It was above a liquor store. He had some people that were working there, so we weren't alone. But then as the night went on, people left, And he showed me some of the stuff he'd been working on, and then we started taking some photos. He was really great at making you feel comfortable. After a while, I took my shirt off, but I had my bra on. And we took some really beautiful pictures. But he got a little aggressive and pushed me on his bed. He pinned me down so I couldn't move my arms, and he put my hand down his pants. And he said, "I want you to feel the pre-cum." There was a moment of fear. Do I just let this happen? Do I not fight back? And then I somehow got my arm free and was able to roll out of the situation and try and giggle and laugh because I was trying my best to not upset him, basically. The moment I walked out the door, I was already getting a barrage of texts from him, love bombing me and saying how amazing I was and how he's so lucky he's found someone like me to be in his life. And that also, I feel like, makes you repress what just happened and say, okay, it's okay. Like, that wasn't that bad, right? That wasn't that bad. I pushed that down really fast, and I didn't talk about it with anyone. I felt like if I said something to anyone or like believed that, then all our discussions were like lies. Yeah. A few months after our first meeting, he asked me to come on as a staff member and help him produce basically all his art projects.
Real time jam.
Do it.
A real time jam.
Milk snake.
No to the ticket. Milk snake, not a garden snake.
Society, they weren't paying as much attention to him at that point. And I got a sense that he wasn't happy in what he was doing. He seemed to be stuck in a rut.
One prescription glass. Whoa, God, you're fucking blind.
No, man, that's for reading close up. That's 3
I
O's.
don't forget drugs. I'm
No,
just gonna wear your
close
glasses.
up, Junior. Close up.
When I started working there, he had me on a pedestal where I would be in a different room, maybe organizing some camera gear or something, and he would be talking to someone else about me, and I could overhear him saying, "She's changing my life, she's saving me."
Ashley, my personal
Assistant.
companion.
Companion.
Yeah, not lover, companion.
That's good. That means you don't have to give gifts.
I don't make sex to her.
I could do no wrong, and it's us against the world is kind of the vibe that he would give to me. But after a while, you fall off that pedestal, and there's nowhere to go except for down. So things got dark. He would treat me like his property to give up to someone else, especially if he was meeting a new friend that he was interested in collaborating with. We attended the Scream Awards and went to drinks after with a couple actors. And he would have me sit on the actor's lap, and they would kiss me or grope me.
How common was this?
All the time. It was very common. Because I was so isolated and it was so normalized, it just became the norm. Anyone that came in that was new, I would be put in that situation.
Did you feel that you could say no?
I even if I felt like I could say no, it was still like, I'm gonna be punished for this. Like afterwards, it's not gonna go well. When you're going through those horrible times and your mental health's compromised and you're beaten down to this point where you don't know what's up and what's down anymore, and you're terrified, how do you leave? You have no stability, you have nothing. He has controls my finances. Like, I don't know where to go from there. Like, how do you go? How do you get out of there? Around summertime of 2011, I drove drunk and crashed I had his car at the time, and got a DUI. And that was like his excuse, basically, to let me go. So it was a mixed bag of emotions, for sure. A weight lifted as well, like a sense of freedom. And also of terror, like, what do I do? Where do I go from here? We didn't talk for a while. After I stopped working, we had that falling out. And then after a while, he started texting updates. We started slowly chatting, and he'd start joking around about our making light of the bad times. But I also was keeping him at arm's length. I didn't want to go back into that inner circle and be around all the time. I could see how I could be sucked back in very quickly.
I think Ashley Walters in particular thought that working with him in that capacity was a stepping stone to maybe further her career. I think she's into photography and something like that. And I don't know if that ever materialized or in the way that she was hoping. I don't think having to go to the grocery store or fetch food for him at 2 a.m. was ideally what she wanted to be doing in life.
Ashley Walters had the time of her life. She had his credit cards, she had his car keys, she was around rock stars. She never complained. And it's ludicrous to 10 years later claim that somebody sexually harassed her. Nobody takes a job as a personal assistant for a rock musician thinking that this is working in a corporate environment.
Two things can be true. Sometimes there were amazing times, and there were things that came out of a situation that I wouldn't trade for the world, but there are things that just also destroy you as a human being and are horrific that you should never have to go through, and you shouldn't have to pay that price for that.
In 2015, it had been a few years since I had left Brian, and I started therapy. I remember one day I was telling my therapist a story or something, and all it took was her just looking at me and saying, "That sounds really awful." And I just broke. For the first time, somebody had looked at me and said, "Wow, you know, what you experienced just sounded terrible." And yeah, I think that was the first time I'd ever really gotten like really validated about it. That was like sort of the beginning of the healing. And then after the year of Me Too, I just thought, look, it's the time to say something.
welcome everyone to today's hearing on the Survivors' Bill of Rights Act. Do you swear that the testimony you are about to give before this committee is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Ranking Member Jackson Lee and distinguished members of the subcommittee, thank you for inviting me to testify today. My name is Evan Rachel Wood, and I'm an artist, but I am also a domestic violence and sexual assault survivor.
This is a text from Brian after the testimony that Evan gave for the Phoenix Act. And he said, just curious if you are still a friend. After all the car and whatnot I got past, I'm a great friend. Not the opposite so much. Hope you are good.
How did you receive that message?
It seemed pretty threatening to me. Like I better be on his side.
My experience with domestic violence was this.
I felt like if you're not going to speak up now, what are you doing?
Everything I had pushed down for so damn long, it just was like a volcano exploded.
If you're gonna date the Antichrist superstar, like, what do you think he is?